So, Tiny Tina's Wonderlands has just released over a month ago, and the game has been received with some positive reception. It did some things better than every game in the franchise, certainly better than Borderlands 3, but in the long term, it turns out some things weren't executed perfectly, and will really hit the game hard in the long run. And those things that hit hard are something I want to discuss today, and that's why I'm bringing back another video in the Crypto Hates Borderlands series. Hooray! This is going to be an unscripted video because I want to go on a bit of an unhinged rant, to be honest. I want to speak from the heart, if you will, as corny as that sounds. So before we start the actual ranting and say my overall thoughts on the game in its current state, I know there's going to be some people who are new to the channel who are going to be like, "Oh look, another complaint video, you're trying to get views, you're hopping on a bandwagon." Oh no, jumping on a bandwagon they know absolutely nothing about because they want a certain... No, I'm not. Check the playlist in the top right now. I've been criticizing the Borderlands franchise for a while, and is it because I hate the game? No, this is my favorite franchise of all time. The only reason you see me and other creators, other mainly Borderlands creators, criticize these games are because we want the best for Gearbox and the Borderlands franchise in general, right? We're not trying to fucking Amber Heard Gearbox, right? We're not trying to ruin them, so yeah, get that out of your system. We're not that sad, okay? And just because some people might not believe me when I say that, let's talk about some positives of Wonderlands. Yeah, this game definitely has a ton of things worth mentioning here. The first being the base game. This game's base game is the best from any Borderlands game, any game in the Borderlands universe. There's so much to do, whether it's from the incredible story, which is actually super funny. I did not expect the same Borderlands 3 writers to make a story this good, to the end game, which, yes, it's Chaos Chamber. Chaos Chamber is fun for a while, but we'll dive into that later. I have a feeling Chaos Chamber is a thing we love, but we're gonna start to hate. And even going to the side quest areas, the big side quests, they're as entertaining as main story missions. There were a ton of effort put into them, and you can really tell the devs were passionate about creating them. Obviously there's melee weapons in the game, and I think the devs did a fantastic job with diversifying legendaries into every category, because you have a very big amount of melee weapons, you have a very big amount of normal weapons, big amount of shields, armor, and all that jazz. Yeah, they did great with that too. Again, you have the Chaos Chamber, which are, in hindsight, dungeons, which are quote-unquote randomized, because they're really not. They're mainly presets, and there's a lot of them, and you can play quite a bit of them without being bored. But once you realise that they're the only end game in the game, you start to have a headache. And finally, this isn't the only good thing, obviously, just the only good thing I'm going to mention right now. Raid bosses, yes, Wonderlands has 3 raid bosses locked in the Chaos Chamber, but nonetheless, 3 raid bosses, and they're the top 3 raid bosses in the franchise. They're so good mechanically, they look awesome, and they're so challenging, it's so cool. And when I say mechanics, I mean mechanics, bro. Like, every single raid boss's fight is structured around the puzzle you do to get to them, and it's so creative, it beats anything out of the series. Borderlands 3 had some great raid bosses too, don't get me wrong. Wotan is a top 5 too, probably my favourite raid boss in the series. Scourge was, it was pretty cool. Hemovorus was cool too. And you know what, fuck that, final positive. Okay, this is a bit of a random one, but I just have to say it since we just talked about Borderlands 3. Bright Huff is such a good hub world. Like, nothing, in my opinion, beats Sanctuary or Sanctuary 2 from Borderlands 2. But oh my god, this shits on Sanctuary 3 from BL3 so much. I hated that place. It was so difficult to get used to when you first played the game. It felt claustrophobic, but Bright Huff actually feels like a fantasy hub world. The castles there, the taverns there, they just nailed the theme. You have the dock where you blow up the ocean. Yeah, it's just so good. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed your taste of positives, because here we go onto the negatives. Okay, I'm sure you guys saw this coming on the list, and well, you should have, because it's obvious. I'm not going to leave suspense until the end to cover it then, because this is just beating a dead horse, so we might as well just beat it now. The DLC DLC 1, Coiled Captors, is a bigger piece of shit than, what can I compare this to? Is a bigger piece of shit than what Nikocado Avocado drops after his daily mukbang.
See, this is the shit that I'm talking about.
It is so bad. I cannot believe we paid £8 or $8 for this. Chum, the old god, the main fight, the only new boss, is a very fun fight, but for some reason, they locked a new stage of his. They locked every single evolving difficulty onto different weeks. I paid for this content. I wish to get what I paid for first day of the DLC when it comes out. It feels like an unfinished product, you know what I mean? I, for one, actually got to fight all the difficulties because I managed to get to them before Gearbox hotfixed the issue out. The issue being you being able to play all the difficulties on day one. And you know what? They were good. They were very good, especially the final two. The second fight was just okay. It was very similar to the first one. But the final fight, stage 4, I could easily see them turning Chum into a raid boss if they just gave him a tiny bit more health. But yeah, it is what it is. It's probably the best part of the DLC, excluding Vesper, woof woof. So I'm not gonna, I'm not gonna trash on it too much. Another issue with the DLC is that I'm fairly certain they got the same people who thought the Guardian takedown crystals were a creative idea to work on the puzzles for Coiled Captors, because these puzzles are less inspired, are more boring, and are more basic than the Guardian takedown crystals. Literally, it's like they're these spinny things, right? And you have to shoot them until all of them get a picture of a shark. Or not a picture, a statue of a shark to line up. It takes like 5 minutes, less. Actually, you guys aren't that dumb. It takes like 2 minutes for you to figure the puzzle out. You have to shoot it until it lands on the statue of the shark. And the thing is, once it lands on the statue of the shark, you can't shoot it again. So you literally can't mess the puzzle up. Why is this classified as a puzzle? And the fact that this puzzle exists in, I think, 4 of the 6 rooms is absurd. Extremely lazy. Again, this is paid content. Bloody Harvest and Cartels were miles better than this, and they were free. This is one thing that really has me worried about future events of this game, if we will even get any. But we'll cross that path when we get there. Bringing in reskinned enemies was scummy. Wait, never mind. They weren't even reskinned. They were just copy and pasted. Especially considering you decided to do the Coiled for your first DLC. The Coiled are the majority's least favorite enemy type, so I don't know, I just feel like it wasn't a great start. Let me just say that I know a lot of people are going to be like, oh, Crypto, you got what you were advertised. You were told you were going to get a Chaos Chamber extension. I know that, man, but I wasn't told it was just gonna be 6 rooms, 1 boss, reskinned enemies, and a constantly reused puzzle which wasn't creative. Dreamvale was by far the best part of this DLC, man. Vesper's got me woof-woofing. Next up, we have a Chaos Chamber. Weird, because I praised the game for this in my positive aspects of the video. Chaos Chamber is an extremely fun way of progressing through the game and climbing difficulty, right? It's so much better than OP levels, and it is 10 times better than Mayhem levels. And thankfully, they made the change that if you're under Chaos 20 and you complete a Chaos Chamber run, you level up your Chaos levels twice. It just makes grinding so much faster. But I still think it's very annoying that you have to do 25 Chaos Chamber runs to reach the max difficulty on every single character that you do. Yes, I think this is the way forward. I think this is a good way to progress. I don't think Chaos Chambers should be account-wide or anything like that. But 25 is a bit too much, especially since all you're doing in Chaos Chambers is clearing out enemies. I think BL3 had the best setup for this. What I really wished, and what everyone really wished in the community, is that to climb Mayhem levels, you had to do, like, I don't know, 3 slaughter shafts, 3 trials, 2 takedowns, and 2 events. That would be such a great way to get to Mayhem 10. It would be so diverse. Every single time you're doing something different each run. But with Chaos Chamber, it's 25 runs of just the exact same thing. And not to mention that you get a lot of the same maps every single run. Like, what they said about having 60 rooms, 60 different rooms in the Chaos Chamber was just bullshit. Next up, we have the fact that there's absolutely no roadmap for the game. No roadmap at all. I don't know why, especially since Borderlands 3's roadmaps were so well received. I'm not sure why we're meant to be unaware of future content this time around. Like, for example, with BO3, when that just launched, we had a roadmap telling us that we were going to get Bloody Harvest a few days after the game launches, Maliwan Takedown just before the end of the year, and then our first DLC, and it was a great way to keep track of content and getting ready for it. Now this next one might be a bit of an unpopular opinion because all of us pretty much, well most of us think Wonderlands is the game that launched with the most content at launch, and I'd have to agree. But I will say that I sort of disagree too because it's not the best endgame content we've had. Like, when you start the game, you're gonna love Chaos Chamber, but once you've done around 20 runs of it, you're gonna see how repetitive and boring it is after you've done a certain amount of runs. And the fact that DLC focuses on Chaos Chamber is a bit worrying. I have a feeling Chaos Chamber is gonna be the word we love before the game comes out and when we start the game. And then by the end of the game's life cycle, we're gonna start hating it. But yeah, anyway, point is, Chaos Chamber is the same thing over and over and over again with some side objectives, which there really isn't many. And with Borderlands 3, sure we had less endgame, we had much less endgame actually. We had more diversity with endgame. In Borderlands 3 we had Slaughter Shaft, we had Trials, we were convinced we were looking for a raid boss, so I guess that counts as an endgame activity. Like a week after Borderlands 3 came out, we had Bloody Harvest. 2 months after Borderlands 3 came out, we had Milo on Takedown, and sure, it hasn't been 2 months since Wonderlands released yet, but we don't know if we're getting a Milo on Takedown styled event. This is the point, this is why we need a roadmap. Before we get into the final main point, I'm gonna go over some honourable mentions. The first being no mail system. Why did they remove this? My honest first thought was that they removed it to stop spreading modded gear around on console, but the thing is, crossplay is a thing. People can just join your game and drop modded gear, so that wouldn't make sense. I have a feeling someone sent Randy Pitchford quite a bit of its poop skins, and he got a bit pissed. I also want to bring up the dumb decision of making certain quest items not be able to drop with anointments. Did you guys not learn from Borderlands 3 that we don't like this? We have anointment reroll for a reason, we should be able to do this. And of course, I just want to bring up that as awesome as the raid bosses are, as much as they're in my top 3, why do they not drop any loot? Sure, they drop crystals, a lot of crystals that can get you loot, but they don't feel rewarding. I want to see legendaries drop out of a raid boss. I don't want to feed him to a bath bunny. And finally, onto what might be my biggest worry, and the main reason why I see people taking a break from Wonderlands and maybe even quitting, is because the DLC, the future DLC, only features one new character, which comes with one skill tree. Let me just remind you that a whole new DLC, Arms Race, came to Borderlands 3 and gave all of our characters new skill trees. That was 4 skill trees in one new DLC. One skill tree in a DLC is very worrying. Like, the main meta builds right now are Pixie builds, TDO builds, Hydra builds. Yeah, there would be more metas, but they just don't exist because we all have one tree. There's a limited amount of things we can do. Now that brings me to the end of the video. I just want to say that as much shit as I just talked about the game, this is my favourite game in the Borderlands universe by far, I'd say. It just needs a ton of quality of life improvements and improvements overall, not just quality of life, to, you know, to keep our attention. I think up until Wonderlands is released, because I haven't really played Borderlands 3 since, I have over 300 days on that game, which is insane. If this is the state Wonderlands continues in, I don't see myself putting in that much days, maybe not even half of that. The game is a gem, and it's very fun to replay. But it's not a very replayable gem, if you know what I mean. But yeah, that marks another addition to the Crypto Hates Borderlands playlist, and that marks the end of the video. That was smooth. Thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed, make sure to like and subscribe, as it really helps me out a lot. I make content all things Wonderlands and Borderlands, so it might just be worth sticking around. I hope you all have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you all in the next one. Stay classy. Peace.